Hello and welcome to a special episode of Constructing Comics, a show building stories one page and one panel at a time. In this episode, we are looking into all things Batman, all things that we know as of February 2020. Batman is coming to theaters in June of 2021. This is Matt, and I'm joined by Constructing Comics co-host Noah.
Hey there.
Noah, why don't you lead us off with your initial thoughts and impressions of what we've seen so far, and then we'll sort of dive into some of the imagery that we've seen online.
At first, I was hesitant. I liked the original video test of Robert Pattinson in the suit,
Mm-hmm.
but I hadn't seen the ears yet. Now seeing a full picture of it with the stuntman, and of course we still don't see how the cape works with it as well. That's going to be a big part of it. Or if there's no cape, you never know. And I was kind of hesitant to like it, but now looking at it more, I like how it sort of all fits together. And also something I've had to tell myself, and sort of this fundamental principle with the Batsuit in cinema that's
Mm-hmm.
very important, is that the Batsuit is usually a reflection of the world. Like, it's only as good as the world that Batman inhabits. So even as much as like you don't like the Joel Schumacher films like Batman and Robin and Batman Forever, that suit is so a part of that world that it kind of works.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's always something that I'm trying not to make too many like jump to conclusions that I'm not going to like this suit, because I don't know what the world around him looks like yet. And that's so important for Batman.
Yeah. So, do you think it was planning to not show us the ears during the Batsuit test, to sort of have that that nerdy long ear versus short ear debate rage a little bit before we actually? I mean, I don't know if these photos that we've seen leak out in the last day or two were planned, but there certainly was a lot of I saw a lot of debate as to people if the ears were going to be long or going to be short, and I saw some people Photoshop it both ways.
Yeah, I would think it is. I always think that that's always something that's, important to, like, of course nowadays is creating buzz is to hold things back. Less is more is always good.
Mm-hmm.
Also, another get nitty gritty iconic, right?
Mm-hmm.
So much of Batman's silhouette are the ears, right, on his mask.
Yeah.
And sort of the brilliance of like the 1989 Batman movie poster is that the symbol of the bat is like almost like coming off of the page, showing that it's bigger, and there's something bigger in store for when you go see this movie than just the symbol. And it's kind of the same principle here, where Robert Pattinson's Batman in that video test was so like, you got a lot right there that was like filling up the frame, but you didn't get it all, and that's sort of what you want from anything. And even these photos aren't the whole picture, right?
Mm-hmm.
So these are just like, this isn't going to hurt the movie at all, these new photos leaked with him on the motorcycle, because it is still pointing to something bigger than, what we're seeing. But what were your initial impressions?
I liked it. I thought the red hue was an interesting choice. There was a lot of snarky comments that he was Daredevil's cousin, brother. So the red hue that they gave it was interesting. It certainly it had, and we talked about this a little bit, it had a little bit of the White Knight collar to it, which was an interesting choice. I guess tactically that could be a way to sort of to protect your neck. That one looked like it was actually like a rigid part of the armor, where like the White Knight one is almost like a flared like fashion collar. So
yeah, it's more starched.
Yeah.
And I think that collar makes sense with these new photos with him on the motorcycle, because that collar is very reminiscent of like sports motorbikers. They have those like thick collars to like support your neck when you're riding.
Yeah.
When you're riding a long time on a, like, say, like a more sporty motorcycle. So I think that's a cool detail I didn't really think about until now. Whereas Murphy, I think, was just trying to go for a Castlevania Batman.
Yeah, I had actually seen some people online talk about the fact that maybe they were going to CGI the eyes white. Like,
I heard that too.
which would be an interesting look. I think that would distinguish it a lot and sort of tie it to the comic book look.
Yeah, I think so too. I would like to see that. Again, it's sort of weird that the most grounded Batman movies, right, are the only ones that have had the white eyes as a part of it, and that was The Dark Knight, the one movie that was like everybody's like, "Oh, it's not a comic book movie." It's the only one that incorporated the white eyes into his costume.
Mm-hmm.
So I always find that to be funny that everybody's always like, "Well, that's not really a comic book movie," and it's so far the only one that's ever incorporated that into the actual design.
Yeah. So do you want to call up some of the images that we've been talking about here?
Yeah, let's look over the original costume test first, and let's see. Let's look at Battinson. Our first look at him, and I don't think we get sound on this, but we will. Uh, I guess I'd like to talk about the music choices for this, which I guess you don't even get to see the ears like right there.
No. So it's definitely got more of a an armor look to
Yeah,
it.
let's
So
get a closer look at that guy right there.
do you want to tackle that now?
Yeah, let's talk about that. Let's
All
rewind
right.
it a little bit.
So I have heard a few people speculate that that is the gun.
Yeah.
Um, and at times I see it, and at other times I don't see it.
Mm.
At times I see the inner parts looking like like a barrel being split and folded. So it could be. I know that you have a theory. Do you want to talk about that?
Well, I think it's like another batarang or something like that inside his chest. But I would like it to be the gun because I think that was a cool thing added into Batman lore, and I think that was the most recent issue in Batman one in Detective Comics 1000.
Hmm.
So I like that idea, but I think they're gonna go with more of a batarang look, like a heavier batarang that he can just take off if he's in the middle of a fight. He just has a weapon close to him where no one expects. One
Yeah, I
thing I
mean,
like about it, though, that's sort of gone from the like a lot of like the more modern Batmans, and I know Ben Affleck sort of had the um, full chest Batman like from Dark Knight Returns, but even then it was so gray that it kind of blended into the whole breastplate
hmm
originally. What I like about this is that it's, and again, and also in the Christopher Nolan films, they really tried to hide the bat symbol and sort of disappeared into the costume. Here, they're sort of embracing that idea in that is in Dark Knight Returns, where Batman talks about why he has the symbol on his chest, and that's to draw fire to it. And
hmm
that was also something Kevin Smith wrote about when he talked about the gun being in the chest plate. So I like how big and prominent it is on his chest, and that it's sort of, it evokes that kind of idea from the comics.
Yeah. So if it is, well, I've been thinking maybe it could be the gun converted into a batarang that's there, and that would also be sort of like maximizing your space. I mean, one thing is
Yeah,
decorative, but if you're going to have a decorative thing that you can then take to turn into a tactical thing, that's saving you space. So that's a very Batman being prepared thing to
yeah.
do.
And it could be both, right? So it could be it could definitely be the gun, and it could definitely be the just another battering, like you were saying. And that's also a very Batman thing, using your trauma as a weapon.
Yeah,
That could be that could be a story point or motif in the movie when it comes out.
yeah,
But yeah, we'll keep going here. One thing I liked about it also is how the shoulder pads move. Like there are these nice, like movable, like plates in between the armor that make it like flexible yet heavy. It looks like.
yeah.
So I like how easily it moves, and it sort of evokes the Arkham games in a little bit,
Hmm.
with like how heavily armored they got. But did you want to talk about the mask a little bit, or did you want to just wait till we get to the ears to talk about the mask?
Yeah, let's talk about ears and mask at the same time.
Okay.
You had mentioned the cape earlier, how we haven't seen the
Yeah,
cape. I had heard that the cape was going to be CGI'd. I don't
I believe
know.
that.
Yeah, so that way you could give it a lot of that uh, that swirling, turning it into different
Yeah,
things, hiding with it, which would be a cool aspect.
it would be a cool aspect. And at now when you're now when visual effects are so good and you can make things like that look real, what was one of the most amazing effects, one of the best effects in like Man of Steel, Batman versus Superman, was Superman's cape.
Hmm.
Rarely was that actually there. A lot of it, the time, it was CGI'd, and or like even Doctor Strange
Hmm.
or Thor. I think a lot of their cape stuff in the most recent movies were all CGI. So it makes sense, especially when you're dealing with stunt performers and actors. You don't have to worry about resetting things. You don't have to worry about continuity with how the cape's flowing. It's
Yeah,
just
and I would assume well, we're probably going to see how dangerous riding a bike
yes,
is, but riding a bike with a 6 foot long flapping cape would create its own problem. So if you want
yeah,
to go ahead and play this, and then
yeah. The one of the video that hit today. This is on comicbook.com. But here's Batman and another rider, and
oh,
yeah,
so
hard fall, and it's slippery out there. I think they're filming in Glasgow,
yeah,
which is an interesting location. Normally, they've filmed Batman films either on a sound stage, or in Detroit, or in Chicago, or
hmm,
L.A., or New York. They're filming this in Glasgow, which is pretty interesting. I'm wondering what they're getting there. There's some speculation around this character as to whether it's Catwoman. And
oh, okay.
yeah, we'll talk about that when we look at the stills. But yeah, that was what was released today. Could be purposeful, could have been an accident. We'll never know. And but let me pull up the. Can you see these
So
photos?
yeah, so well, not yet, but while you're getting those photos, I wonder if the going to sort of like a European city will give us sort of the ability to have him standing on like a Gothic sort of
Yeah,
building with gargoyles, and he can be brooding, looking down, which we've never really gotten. Well, I guess we probably got that in the Burton movies, but this would be a more I'm hesitant to say it, but it would be a less cartoony sort of like
yeah,
look to it. It'd be a more real world sort of thing. So
yeah,
you've called up another image that we can see of the I have to assume this the stunt double here.
yeah. This is a stunt double. I've been trying to figure out who the stunt double is, and I can't find anything. The But I agree with you though. Like it'll be interesting to see what the architecture is, and that plays into so much of who Batman is what he's interacting with.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so here, this was the first image that sort of I saw today was this Batman with the ears, and yeah, they are. I don't know if they're much longer than normal for Batman movies, but it's they are pretty big and they're pretty little, they're like thin,
Yeah.
and I'm wondering here too with the goggles on the helmet if that's something that's going to be CGI'd out later and that's just for the stuntman's protection, or if that's actually going to be something that's going to be a part of the character as well. Um, but what do you think of these gauntlets right here?
Yeah, those were interesting.
Yeah,
I was trying to figure out, what that was. I do like the that it has sort of the traditional sort of at the bottom side, depending on how the arm is turned, it has the 2 to 3 um, flared out sort of like knife points, which is a
yeah,
traditional Batman thing.
yeah. I like the more square look of everything, and again, it's very tactical. It's very practical. It's yeah, but it's still got that comic book Batman flair. Like it looks like it's found objects that he's made his suit out of.
Which would make sense in a way because unless like Lucius Fox is putting this together, he can't necessarily uh, go out unless he, is able to keep it secretive who it's going to go to, but he can't sort of like contract this out.
No. Yeah, and I'm wondering if, yeah, like, because this Batman's also supposed to be sort of in that 0 year after year one period of time.
Mm-hmm.
So he's still fresh. So this costume is sort of reflecting where he's at in his crime fighting crusade. And yeah, I like how, but you can still see there's some wear and tear in it already. So he's been doing this for a little bit, but not that long. Like you can see
Yeah.
scrapes around the armor where he's seen battle damage.
Yeah. So looking at this now, it's what's interesting to me is how close that this is a combination of Batman, Captain America, and like
Yeah,
Iron Man put together. Like
yeah,
it's um, I wonder how much they were how much they probably would never want to admit to it, but they have to be looking at the success of Marvel movies and trying to take little aspects of that and bring those over to their DC properties and still sort of keep their the vibe of a Batman story. So
yeah. And it's interesting that you bring up Captain America because Captain America's costume from First Avenger, I mean, mainly from Winter Soldier and on, they made huge innovations as far as superhero costumes and that because Chris Evans was able to get in and out of that costume so fast.
mm-hmm,
And so it was a costume that like stunt performers were comfortable in. It was a costume he was comfortable in. Like it was just a well constructed costume. So they have to learn from that for Batman because that's so much of, the practical aspect of the suit is something that sort of interprets well into Batman's story.
mm-hmm,
But also what like you brought up Iron Man is, and that's, Iron Man and Batman are so similar in storyline and character, both being billionaires. But you sort of Batman becomes less interesting the more Iron Man he is, and
mm-hmm.
vice versa with Iron Man, right? He becomes less interesting the more Batman he is. So it's walking that fine line between, something that's high tech, but, not too high tech and still has to like rely on a silhouette of like, a muscle bound that's more anatomical and less machine like.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they're hitting that balance here very well with trying to keep these nice like this nice form around his pectorals. And I think even later we'll see some stuff around his, I guess not in this photo, but around I think I've seen some other photos around sort of his abdominal area that he's got some like interesting intricacies down there that help him look like he's flexible and yeah, sort of evoking sort of like a musculature in his suit.
Yeah, no, these are pretty cool photos.
Yeah,
Do you think the stunt double has to be picked to have a jawline similar to the actor?
I don't think so because if you look at his face, I mean, he's got dots all
Hmm.
around him, and that's for motion capture, so
Okay.
that later on VFX artists can go in and replace his jawline, so it doesn't matter. Roto
Okay.
artists are going to have to go in and paint it all out and put in Robert Pattinson's face, which is another cool innovation that's happened since. Well, it's been going on for a while now, but it'll be something that'll happen after these photos.
So so you think or you've seen speculation that this could be Catwoman?
Yeah, I've seen a lot of speculation that this might be Catwoman because we don't see the face of the rider.
I mean,
Um,
Catwoman's been cast, right? It's
yeah, it's Zoe Kravitz.
yeah.
Yeah, and good choice. It'll be interesting to see how her and Robert Pattinson play off each other, what their chemistry will be like. I actually like how Batman's ears look on this photo the best out of all of them. I think that one looks good, but I think this one looks the best, and that's sort of the one that made me go, yeah, I like the design.
Yeah, as he's leaning forward,
Yeah,
they have more of a look. So do you want to talk about the bike? And
yeah,
I know you have an image.
yeah. I got a couple images because this is Yeah, this is one of my favorite Batman stories of all time, the Zero Year.
Yeah, so this is the Snyder and Capullo, I guess mostly the Capullo design for
Yeah.
the bike and Bruce during this time.
Yeah, you get and again, when they're setting the movie, it would make sense for them to be evoking these kind of designs, the more found object Batman.
Hmm.
And Capullo himself has said this is the Batman he enjoyed drawing the most out of all of them, because this was fully his design and where he could let his imagination let loose. And but you can see a lot of the similar, like, aspects of, like, you have a familiar Batman, you know, cowl and or like, or body structure,
Hmm.
and then you have like, you have like all these belts with these pouches and this backpack with like tools all over it, and but also you see the bat cycle is very similar, where
Hmm.
it's got the bat shape up front, and the bike is sort of a more of a, like an off-roader, you know all-terrain kind of like dirt bike looking thing, very similar to what we saw today from the clips. Another thing that's cool, and I wanted to talk about this with this helmet. I One of the interesting things that, like, so in Christopher Nolan's Batman and in Zack Snyder's Batman, the cowl is very expressive with all the expressions on it.
Hmm.
Like, you have a very furrowed brow and you have all these wrinkles in it that evoke these, like, this very angry face. One thing you notice here is that there's not a lot of expression on Batman's mask, and even in the camera test you saw that as well. There's a very simple, like, design to the cowl. Like, there's a furrowed brow and everything, but it's very simple. And one thing Capullo said about drawing his Batman mask was he was going for something simple as well. You kind of can see a lot of similarities between the two, even how far back the ears are set
Hmm.
to the new design. So I think they're definitely trying to evoke some Capullo. And one thing Capullo said about why he kept it simple is that he always felt it was scarier when you didn't know what kind of face Batman was making. So it fit for Batman to, like, if he's going to strike fear into the hearts of everyone else, sort of this simple, mysterious design where there's not too many lines on his face, kind of is a little more freaky.
Yeah.
And that fits with sort of Matt Reeves' director style, because he did Let Me In, which I guess is I guess the remake of Let the Right One In,
Hmm.
which is a vampire film. He did a very effective horror in that film, so he might be invoking maybe some more horror, simple, less is more designs into Batman.
Yeah, I can definitely see this image that you have here, and then the image we saw, the photo where he's where he's leaning forward there. Those look almost eerily similar
Yeah, I think
from that.
yeah, I think they're definitely trying to invoke sort of what Capullo was going for, and I'm happy with that. That's a new look for Batman that we haven't seen in a while. And now I'm thinking about it. You haven't seen a Batman with a simple mask design since the '60s with Adam West,
Hmm.
and uh, yeah, so, like, everyone, there's so much of a human face that's been invoked on Batman's mask, and now they're sort of going for a more simple, less human, more monstrous, almost Michael Myers, like, you know, absence of human features kind of mask, which I like.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what I have on Batman's costume.
So we were going to talk about ears, but it seems like you've come around. You
I
were
think I have.
originally team short ears, and now you're so.
What
I,
team? But why are you team long ears? What arc of Batman do you really love with him with long ears?
well, so I really like in the Kelly Jones drawn Batman, and I know that those were like extremely large ears. I just
Yeah,
it's one of those things where it's it's comic booking, it's making things look interesting and uh, exciting. So, but I think that they found the right mix, because if we're going for tactical, uh, you know if they were too much, if they were too big, you might catch them in a doorway,
Right.
it's, so it just doesn't make sense for them to be too big, even though it does look cool in comics sometimes.
Yeah, and I've heard people talk about like the Burton Batman, how years in that movie work because
Hmm.
the city is so cartoony and over the top that yeah, of course Batman would have these like ridiculously impractical ears on his mask. And then for the movies going forward all the way through Batman and Robin, yeah, it would make sense. And
Yeah.
then there are other times too, like in Grant Morrison's Arkham Asylum, it just looks really cool. Like, and again, it fits into the world
Hmm.
that book takes place in. So Dave McKean, his drawings of Batman are really great with the long ears that are almost as long, if not longer, than Kelly Jones's at times in that book.
Yeah. So we talked about one of the other cast members, Zoe Kravitz, being cast as Selena Kyle, Catwoman, and we know some of the other cast members. But I think there's been a photo of Colin Farrell that's come out recently that's led to some speculation, right?
Yeah, let me find that one. If
Yeah,
I might not have it with me anymore.
that's okay.
Oh, here
What?
it is. Oh, I found it.
Yeah,
Yeah, let me pull
but
that up really quick.
yes, but while you're looking at that, the Commissioner Gordon has been cast as well, right?
Yeah, we've got oh dang it, if you hadn't brought his name up. Uh if you hadn't his name is I can't remember. All I remember the things that he's in.
I know that
He's
he's in,
Felix Leiter in Casino Royale
and
and all the other Bond films.
he's in Westworld as well.
Westworld, and he was in he's in a lot of stuff. He was in Training Day. He's
I'll
in a lot of stuff.
I'll take a look while you talk about this image that we have here.
Yeah, this is interesting right here, and I like how they are again from what little you can see. You can see sort of a penguin like facial structure
Hmm.
being built into sort of the makeup. They're really reinforcing how like how close they can get. They can make his eyes look together. Then just sort of using his face and using makeup to make his face look a little more bird-like, and using the mustache to invoke a beak, which is an interesting take. And then of course having the spiked hair that makes it look almost like feathered. Thought that was a cool idea. So I'm liking where they're going with. If this is the representation of what type of villains we're going to see just in Colin Farrell's face, I'm liking where they're going. It's very creative and it's very out of the box rather than using. I mean, they might use prosthetics, who knows? But if this is what we're seeing as what it's going to be, it's a cool idea. And Jeffrey Wright is the name of the actor playing Felix.
Yeah, I looked that up, and so we also have Paul Dano as the Riddler.
Yeah, and his name isn't Edward Nigma, which I'm very happy about. It's Edward Nashton, which is like, yeah, that also says a lot about where the movie's going. Where, yeah, someone whose name is Enigma, yeah, he's
Hmm.
gonna be a supervillain named the Riddler. Duh, you should know that by now, people. Um, but yeah, there's a lot of other people. John Turturro is playing Carmine Falcone. Peter Sarsgaard is playing a character named District Attorney Gil Colson. Do you
Yeah,
know who
that's
Gil Colson is?
I do not know.
Okay, so yeah, I don't know if that's just a new character invented for the movie, but most importantly, Andy Serkis is playing Alfred Pennyworth, which will be interesting.
Yeah, definitely. That's gonna be a interesting change. I wonder if as we go to sort of the 0 year Batman, the Batman that's younger, more inexperienced, this would be a good chance to. Um, there is the line of comics where they sort of more explore that, like Alfred was like a Navy SEAL and he's more capable.
Yeah,
So that would be an interesting way to do that here, is to have Alfred be a more like field capable person and not sort of the guy
right.
running tech in the background.
Yeah, it would make sense too because it would be kind of a waste to have Andy Serkis in a movie and not have some physical aspect to his performance. Or maybe Andy Serkis asked for a performance that's less physical. Maybe he wants to be the guy that just sits in a chair, that kind of thing, the whole movie, because all he's been doing lately are just over the top characters that are either in mocap or he's Claw in Black Panther, who's also all over the place. So who knows?
Yeah, I mean, we're getting to the point where so many of these folks have crossed over um, between both universes.
Yeah,
You know, uh,
because Zoe Kravitz was Mary Jane most recently in Into the Spider Verse, and
yeah,
now
and
she
I think she was in. I think she
X
was.
Men.
Yeah, that's what I was
She
gonna
was
say.
Yeah, she was Angel in X Men First Class, and Colin Farrell was Bullseye in the original
Very true.
Daredevil film. So there's some Daredevil crossover for you.
Yeah. All right,
Yeah,
so we are. So this San Diego Comic Con will be about a year away from this movie hitting theaters.
yeah.
So I would have to assume that maybe we're going to get some more footage. Do you think we get a trailer at around that time, or maybe the first teaser trailer?
I don't know if they would be able. I mean, they'd have to, yeah, do like a very small teaser, kind of like what they did with um, Dark Knight Rises.
Hmm.
Sort of do something that's a little more just like brief images, just flashes, like just some short scenes. The hard part with like doing huge blockbusters are that they just started filming this movie,
Hmm.
and this is probably going to be a long shoot. So I'll be surprised if there's a trailer, but I mean, at the same time, I wouldn't doubt it because DC is all about like putting trailers out way before the movies come out. Um, Hence the whole like, now they're getting into doing the whole posting the camera tests as sort of the first teaser of things, and which I like.
Yeah. All right. So I think that's probably going to do it for this review. I think it's safe to say we're both pretty excited. I
Yeah,
mean, I uh, Batman movie. I'm going to be there.
yeah, me too.
So everything I've seen so far has got me to continue to be exciting, and it'll be interesting to see this sort of. I don't know if they're calling this a reboot, but it certainly is a reboot. So
Yeah, it's a reboot. Um, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what they're going to do with this, and whether it's going to be, everybody's like everything has to be a trilogy
mhm.
nowadays, and that was something everybody was saying with this film, was that it's the start of a new trilogy, and I'm hoping just for a nice self-contained story. And DC's been doing that more and more lately, which I'm very happy with. Is just give us a nice start and no start to a franchise kind of thing. I wouldn't mind that. It sounds like from what I've heard from the direct, what we've heard from Matt Reeves, the director, is that's what he wants to do, is this nice open-ended Batman story that sort of stands on its own, which we haven't seen in a while, and that'd be great.
Yeah, and so another thing I was just thinking about as we close up here, I thought one thing that was interesting is what we've seen has mostly been in daylight. I know the wreck
Yeah,
looked like it was a little bit in rain and a little bit of maybe twilight. So maybe that'll be a way to sort of darken it up and sort of move DC moving
lose yourself.
themselves away
Oh.
from that dark, dim and gritty Snyder verse that they had for a while.
Yeah, who knows? That also could have been a day for night shot as
Mhm.
well, so they could go into post and change it to nighttime. But
True.
yeah, who knows? Matt Reeves's style as a director is really interesting. As far as I think he does good with both night shoots and day shoots. Like the whole sequence of for during Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, where they invade the where the apes invade on horseback, is really phenomenal for a night
Hmm.
shot. And then but then of course in War for the Planet of the Apes, all the really amazing sequences in that film are during the day. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's a mix of both in this film.
All right. So one last question here. So we did talk about how they look like they're taking aspects of the Snyder Capullo Year Zero run, a little bit maybe White Knight, little bit Arkham Asylum with the suit. Do you think with Catwoman being in this movie, they will touch on any sort of like the Tom King uh, aspect of the relationship between Batman and Catwoman?
I wouldn't be surprised. Tom King's been in Hollywood a lot lately. Yeah. So,
He-
but at the same time, he might. What 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 I would be more, what I would expect more of is something more like Hush, I guess, which
that
is sort of
or
more
I'm sorry, I
gothic
didn't mean to cut you
story.
off.
That's the more gothic noir romance between them in that book.
Or what would be interesting is if you're taking zero from Snyder, if you took year one from
Oh,
Miller, where you have that
yeah.
sort of introduction between Bruce and Selena, you could combine those sort of, because those would match up for like a starting off narrative as well.
Yeah, that would work cool. Yeah, that's a good. That's something I would hope for that more than anything. Yeah.
Okay. Well, if you enjoyed this, you can follow us on social media. We have a Twitter that is at ConstructComPod. We have a Instagram, Constructing Comics Pod, Facebook, Constructing Comics Pod, and we also have a podcast, Constructing Comics, wherever podcasts are found. I'd like to thank everybody for joining us, and hope everybody enjoyed this breakdown of what we know so far, coming up from the new Batman movie.